This is Duke University.
Hi, I'm James Chappel. I'm assistant professor in the Department of History, and I'm a member of the Faculty Advisory Board at the Duke Human Rights Center at Franklin Humanities Institute. I work on modern European history, mainly, and I'm writing a book right now about religion and politics in 20th century Europe. Because one of the interesting things about contemporary human rights culture, I think, is the prominence and importance of religious organizations. So my first book, which will come out in a year or two, is about how the Catholic Church in Europe went from an organization that was largely a sort of monarchist and largely racist or anti-Semitic institution to, over the course of a few decades, between the 1920s and the 1960s, turned into what you can in some ways see as a global human rights organization and became committed to principles of human rights. And this happened to other religious organizations as well, which is something I look to explore in my future work. So I'm interested in sort of the global religious landscape and how that relates to human rights. And that's my academic work. In my teaching side, I've done a fair amount of teaching in history of human rights here at Duke. I teach a course on simply called History of Human Rights, which is an upper level course in the history department, which is a really in-depth philosophical and legal history of human rights. What is it to have a right? And also, what is it to be a human? And how have these concepts intertwined, and how has this changed over time? And it's a course that talks about the French Revolution and the legacy of Christianity and abolition of the slave trade and all sorts of things like that. And it ends with a sort of in-depth investigation of contemporary human rights movements. And we are always thinking about their long-term trajectory. I'll teach a course called The Introduction to Human Rights and Social Movements. This is a 100-level class. It's an intro-level history class that lets us think about different kinds of movements and how people working together can create historical change, which is not obvious to a lot of students. So we spend a lot of time thinking about the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, and then in more recent decades, the human rights movement. And we talk about the human rights and how human rights are similar to and distinct from other kinds of liberationist rights-based movements like civil rights and women's rights. So so you see my research and teaching all revolves around questions of rights and who has them and what they mean. And I'm very excited to be at Duke, where so many others, both faculty and students, are interested in similar questions.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.